The Deep Space Patrol ship Stargazer drifted silently through the darkness at the edge of human space. Commander James Walker stood at the bridge's main viewport, his weathered face reflecting off the reinforced glass. 20 years of space patrol had taught him to trust his gut. And right now, his gut was screaming that something wasn't right. "Sir, sensors are picking up an anomaly at bearing 047, reported Tom Evans from his station. The young officer's fingers danced across his console, bringing up more detailed readings. "It's big, whatever it is." Walker turned from the viewport, his boots making soft sounds against the deck plating. "Define big, Lieutenant." "Bigger than anything we've got in the fleet, sir." Initial readings suggest it's nearly 4 kilometers in length. A low whistle escaped Walker's lips. The largest ships in the United Earth Defense Fleet barely reached 1 kilometer. He walked over to Evans's station, studying the preliminary scans. The object was holding position, showing no signs of movement or power emissions. "Get us closer, but maintain safe distance." "Full sensor sweep," Walker ordered. He activated the ship-wide comm. "All hands, this is the commander. Battle stations, this is not a drill." Red warning lights bathed the corridors in their dull glow as crew members rushed to their posts. Walker watched as the Stargazer's tactical officer, Lisa Green, brought the ship's weapons online. Better safe than sorry in unexplored space. As they drew closer, the massive shape began to take form on their viewing screens. What they saw made every person on the bridge stop and stare. It was unmistakably a warship, but unlike anything they'd ever encountered. Its hull was angular and aggressive, covered in what appeared to be weapon ports and launch tubes. But what caught Walker's attention wasn't its size or its obvious military purpose. It was the markings on its hull. "Those are English letters," Green said, her voice barely above a whisper. Walker leaned forward, squinting at the enhanced image. There, clear as day on the ship's hull, was writing in standard Earth English. "UES PARADOX 2947. "That's impossible," Evans muttered. "That's 490 years in the future." Walker felt a chill run down his spine. The year was 2457, and they were looking at a ship that claimed to be from 5 centuries ahead of them. Either this was an elaborate hoax, or they were dealing with something far beyond their understanding. "Any power readings?" Walker asked, keeping his voice steady despite the growing unease in his stomach. "Minimal, sir," replied Green. "Life support seems to be functioning at a basic level, but main systems appear to be dormant. No signs of crew, no active weapons, no shields. She's just floating there." Walker made his decision. "Send a detailed report back to Fleet Command. Request immediate support. In the meantime, we're going to take a closer look." He turned to his executive officer, Mike Rogers. "Prepare a boarding team. Full hazard gear, weapons cold but ready. I'll lead the team myself." Rogers began to protest, but Walker cut him off with a raised hand. "This could be first contact, a trap, or something we can't even imagine. I need my best people on this, and I need to see it with my own eyes." An hour later, Walker led a team of 6 through the Stargazer's airlock and into space. Their magnetic boots engaged as they landed on the mysterious vessel's hull. Up close, the ship was even more impressive. The metal beneath their feet was smooth and unmarked, showing no signs of micrometeoroid impacts or space debris, as if it had just left the shipyard. "Engineering, what do you make of this hull material?" Walker asked through his suit's comm. Chief Engineer Roy Thompson ran his scanner over the surface. "Sir, these readings don't make sense. The material composition, it's like nothing in our database. The molecular structure seems to be actively repairing itself. Self-healing metal. In 2457, that's still theoretical. They found an airlock, and surprisingly, it responded to their universal emergency codes." The team exchanged worried glances. How could a ship from the future recognize current emergency protocols? As the airlock cycled, Walker's mind raced with possibilities, none of them comforting. The interior of the ship was dark, illuminated only by their suit lights and occasional strips of emergency lighting along the floor. The corridors were wide enough for 3 people to walk side by side, with ceiling heights that suggested the designers had efficiency in mind rather than comfort. "Atmosphere is breathable," Thompson reported, checking his instruments. "Temperature 18 degrees Celsius, standard pressure. Life support's functioning perfectly." Walker kept his helmet on anyway. "Stay alert. We don't know what automated systems might still be active." They made their way through the ship, following the emergency lighting that seemed to activate just ahead of them, as if the ship was guiding them somewhere. The architecture was clearly human in design, but everything felt advanced, streamlined, evolved. "Commander," called out Security Officer Jack Miller, "you need to see this." They had reached what appeared to be a command center. As they entered, lights flickered on, and holographic displays sprang to life around them. The technology was leagues beyond anything they had, but the layout was intuitive enough that Walker could recognize it as a bridge. "Can anyone read these displays?" Walker asked, studying the holographic text floating in the air. "Sir," Evans said, his voice shaking slightly. "They're in English. Look at this one. It's showing the ship's log. Last entry dated August 15, 2947. Walker approached the main console. As he did, a soft blue light emerged from the ceiling, coalescing into a human-sized hologram. The figure was clearly an artificial intelligence avatar, designed to look like a middle-aged man in a uniform they didn't recognize. "Welcome aboard the UES Paradox," the hologram said, its voice perfectly human. "I've been waiting for you, Commander Walker." The team raised their weapons instinctively, but Walker held up his hand. "At ease," he ordered, though his own heart was racing. "How do you know my name?" The hologram smiled, but there was sadness in its expression. "Because you sent me here, Commander. Or rather, you will send me here. 490 years from now, to be exact." Walker removed his helmet, needing to face this situation with his own eyes. "Explain." "This ship is humanity's last hope," the hologram said. "I am its caretaker, an artificial intelligence tasked with ensuring it arrives at the right time, to the right people. We have much to discuss, Commander, and very little time. Humanity faces an extinction-level threat, and this ship, impossible as it may seem, is here to prevent it." The hologram gestured, and the bridge came fully to life. Screens showed star maps, weapon systems, and technology that made their most advanced ships look primitive in comparison. But what caught Walker's attention was a countdown timer prominently displayed on the main screen. "What is that counting down to?" he asked, dreading the answer. "First contact," the hologram replied grimly, "with an enemy that will nearly destroy humanity, unless we change things here and now." Walker looked at his team, then back at the hologram. Everything they knew about physics, about time, about what was and wasn't possible, had just been thrown out the window. But one thing was clear: they had found something that would change humanity's future forever. "Tell me everything," Walker said, and the hologram nodded, beginning a story that would reshape human history. The hologram's blue light cast strange shadows across the bridge as Commander Walker and his team listened to its explanation. They had been aboard the Paradox for 3 hours now, and each new revelation made Walker's head spin more than the last. "The ship's main computer contains detailed records of our wars with the Swarm," the hologram explained, bringing up terrifying images of massive dark shapes moving between stars. "They're a collective intelligence that spreads through space like a virus, consuming everything in their path." Thompson raised his hand to touch one of the floating images, his fingers passing through the holographic display. "These energy readings are off the scale. Each of these things is the size of a small moon." "Correct," the hologram confirmed. "The Swarm builds their ships by consuming entire planets. In our timeline, humanity wasn't prepared. First contact occurred when they woke from their dormant state in the Carina Nebula. Earth had no warning. Walker paced the bridge, his boots making no sound on the strange metal floor. The ship seemed to absorb all unnecessary noise, making their voices sound oddly isolated. "You mentioned this ship has technology that breaks the laws of physics. Show me." The hologram nodded, and the bridge lights dimmed. New displays appeared, showing schematics of the ship's systems. The Paradox isn't just a warship. It's a testbed for humanity's most advanced technologies. The hull is made of adaptive nanomaterial that can repair itself and change properties based on threats. Our weapons use principles of quantum mechanics that won't be discovered for another 3 centuries. Lisa Green studied the weapon schematics with professional interest. These aren't just guns, are they? They're reality disruption weapons. In simple terms, yes, the hologram agreed. The swarmed ships are virtually indestructible by conventional means, so we learned to bend space itself to destroy them. But the ship's most important feature is its temporal displacement drive. The hologram brought up a new schematic, showing an engine design that made Walker's eyes hurt to look at. Parts of it seemed to exist in multiple places at once, and some components appeared to be moving backward through time. "That's impossible," Thompson whispered, but his voice lacked conviction. After all, they were standing on an impossible ship. "The temporal drive is what brought us here," the hologram continued. "But using it took most of our power reserves. The ship is currently operating on backup systems, while the main reactor slowly recharges. That's why we needed you to find us at exactly this moment. We have 3 months until the Swarm's scout ship launches. 3 months to prepare humanity for what's coming." Walker turned to Evans. "Get a secure channel to Fleet Command. They need to see this." But before Evans could move, warning lights flashed across the bridge. The hologram's expression changed to one of concern. "We have company. 3 ships just dropped out of FTL travel nearby. Their signatures match known pirate vessels in your time period." Walker's training kicked in. "My ship is out there alone. We need tow." "Commander," the hologram interrupted. "This might be an opportunity. The Paradox's defensive systems are still operational. Perhaps a demonstration would help convince your superiors about the validity of our claims." The bridge's main viewport cleared, showing the space around them. 3 rusty-looking ships were approaching the Stargazer, which looked tiny next to the massive Paradox. Walker could see his crew positioning for a fight, but they were outgunned 3-1. "What are you suggesting?" Walker asked the hologram. "The Paradox has non-lethal options. We can disable the pirates without destroying their ships. It would demonstrate our capabilities while saving your crew." Walker nodded. "Do it." The hologram smiled, and the bridge came fully alive for the first time. Lights blazed, systems hummed to life, and Walker felt a subtle vibration through the deck. On the viewport, he watched as invisible waves of energy pulsed out from the Paradox. When they touched the pirate ships, all 3 vessels suddenly went dark, drifting helplessly in space. "Their systems will reboot in approximately 1 hour," the hologram explained. "No permanent damage, but they won't be a threat." Walker's comm crackled. "Commander," Roger's voice came through, excited and confused. "Sir, did you see that? What just happened?" "I saw it, Mike. Send boarding teams to secure those ships. I'll explain everything soon." Walker turned back to the hologram. "That was impressive, but if the swarm is as powerful as you say, we'll need more than fancy shutdown pulses to stop them." "Of course. That was just the ship's point defense system. Would you like to see our main weapons?" Before Walker could answer, Evans called out from a console he'd been studying. "Commander, I've found something in the ship's logs. It's you, sir." The hologram's expression turned grave as Evans activated a recorded message. A much older version of Walker appeared on the screen. His hair was white, his face bore new scars, but his eyes held the same determination. "If you're seeing this, then the Paradox made it," the older Walker said. "I know how crazy this all seems. I remember standing where you are now, trying to make sense of it all. But everything the ship's AI tells you is true. The swarm is coming, and we have one chance to stop them before they destroy everything we love. The recording continued, showing footage of massive battles, of Earth's cities in flames, of humanity fighting a desperate war against an enemy that seemed unstoppable. The older Walker explained how they'd found the swarm's weakness too late, how the temporal drive was their last desperate gamble. "Don't make the same mistakes we did," the recording concluded. "Don't wait. Don't debate. Act now, while they're still sleeping. The ship knows what to do. Trust it. Trust yourself. Good luck." The bridge was silent after the recording ended. Walker's team looked at him, waiting for his reaction. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of 2 timelines resting on his decisions. "Show me everything," he said to the hologram. "Every weapon, every system, every piece of technology we have. If we're going to convince Fleet Command to launch a preemptive strike against an enemy they've never seen, we need to understand exactly what we're dealing with." The hologram nodded, and new displays appeared around them. As Walker and his team began to learn the secrets of humanity's most advanced warship, alarms were already going off in Fleet Command. The Paradox's arrival had changed everything, and there was no going back. In the darkness of space, the massive ship hung silently, its hull reflecting distant starlight. Inside, the future of humanity was taking shape, guided by a commander who was both learning and teaching himself how to fight a war that hadn't happened yet. The countdown to the swarm's awakening continued, marking the time humanity had left to prepare for the greatest fight in its history. Fleet Admiral Marcus stood at the head of the emergency council table, his face grim as he studied the holographic projections showing the paradox. 2 weeks had passed since Walker's discovery, and Earth's military leadership had gathered in the underground command center beneath New Geneva to decide humanity's next move. "Let me be clear about what you're suggesting, Commander Walker," the Admiral said, his voice echoing in the silent room. "You want us to launch a preemptive strike against an alien species we've never met, based on information from a ship that claims to be from the future." Walker stood straight, meeting the Admiral's gaze. "The evidence is irrefutable, sir. The Paradox's technology alone proves its origin. Dr. Torres, please explain your findings." Dr. Maria Torres stepped forward, her dark hair streaked with gray. As Earth's leading physicist, her opinion carried weight. "The ship's temporal drive isn't theoretical. It works. We've confirmed it by studying the temporal wake still surrounding the vessel. This ship truly is from our future." The room erupted in murmurs. Admiral Marcus raised his hand for silence. "Even if we accept this, and that's a big if, you're talking about starting a war." "With respect, sir," Walker replied, "we're talking about preventing our extinction." The hologram from the Paradox, which they'd taken to calling guide, appeared in the center of the room. Earth's leaders had grown somewhat used to its presence over the past 2 weeks, though some still flinched at its sudden appearances. "Perhaps a more detailed demonstration is in order," Guide suggested. "The Paradox's memory banks contain full recordings of the first swarm attack. Would you like to see how the war began in our timeline?" Admiral Marcus nodded slowly. The room darkened, and suddenly they were surrounded by a 3-dimensional recreation of Earth space. They watched as massive shapes emerged from FTL travel. Dark, organic-looking ships that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The recreation showed Earth's defense fleet engaging the swarm. Humanity's best weapons barely scratched the alien vessels. Then they watched in horror as the swarm ships released countless smaller creatures that tore through Earth's defenses like paper. "Stop," Marcus commanded, his face pale. The projection froze on an image of Sydney in flames. "Those creatures, they're biological weapons. The swarm is a collective," Guide explained. "Each drone is part of the whole. They don't communicate. They simply are. Their ships are grown, not built, using the resources they harvest from conquered worlds. In our timeline, humanity lost 2 billion lives in the first day of fighting." Walker stepped forward again. But now we have a chance to strike first, while they're dormant. The Paradox has mapped their location. Their main fleet sleeps in the Carina Nebula, waiting for the scout ship to wake them. We have 2 months before that happens. And what if we fail? Asked General Rivers, her weathered face showing deep concern. If we attack and don't completely destroy them, we'll start the very war we're trying to prevent. That's why we need to commit everything, Walker argued. The Paradox can upgrade our current fleet with its technology. Not to full future specs, but enough to give us a fighting chance. We've already begun modifying the Stargazer as a test case. The hologram brought up new images, showing the Stargazer's transformation. Its weapons now glowed with the same strange energy as the Paradox's systems. The ship's hull had been enhanced with the same self-repairing metal. The modifications are holding stable, Dr. Torres added. We can upgrade our entire defense fleet within 6 weeks if we start now. Admiral Marcus walked around the table, studying the frozen image of the swarm ships. The political fallout from this will be enormous. Starting a war based on future intelligence, some will call it madness. Better than the alternative, Walker said quietly. He nodded to Guide, who played one final recording. The older Walker appeared again, but this time he wasn't alone. Behind him stood a group of children in worn clothing, their faces dirty but determined. These are the last human children, the recording said, born in underground bunkers, never seeing the sun. They're the reason we built the Paradox, the reason we broke the laws of physics and time itself, because humanity deserves better than extinction. These kids deserve a future. The recording ended, leaving the room in heavy silence. Admiral Marcus looked around at the gathered leaders, reading their expressions. Some showed fear, others determination. All understood the weight of the decision before them. If we do this, Marcus said slowly, we do it right. I want every scrap of tactical data from that ship analyzed. Every weakness the swarm has, every strategy that worked against them. We're not just copying your future tech, we're going to improve on it. Walker felt hope rising in his chest. The Paradox's AI can interface with our tactical systems. It can run simulations, help us plan the perfect first strike. Sir, General Rivers interrupted. What about the public? How do we explain this? Marcus smiled grimly. We don't. Not yet. This stays classified at the highest level. As far as the world knows, we're conducting routine fleet exercises. If we succeed, they'll never need to know how close we came to extinction. If we fail, he let the thought hang unfinished. There's something else you should know, Guide said, its holographic form shifting slightly. The Paradox isn't just a warship, it's a seed ship. Explain, Marcus demanded. In its data banks, this ship carries the sum total of human scientific advancement up to the year 2947. Medical cures, clean energy solutions, faster than light travel. Everything humanity achieved before the swarm arrived. It was meant as a backup, in case the worst happened, a way to give humanity a head start rebuilding. The implications hit everyone in the room. Even if they prevented the war, this ship would advance human technology by centuries. The future was literally in their hands. Commander Walker, Marcus said, his decision made. You have operational command of this mission. Work with Guide to begin fleet modifications immediately. I want detailed attack plans on my desk in 48 hours. Yes, sir, Walker replied, saluting. As the meeting broke up, Walker felt the weight of 2 timelines on his shoulders. In one, humanity had faced the swarm unprepared and nearly died. In another, the one he was building, they would be ready. The war that shouldn't exist was about to begin. And this time, humanity would strike first. On the main screen, the countdown continued its relentless march. 2 months until the scout ship would wake. 2 months to prepare humanity for the greatest battle in its history. 2 months to change the future. The massive shipyards orbiting Mars buzzed with activity as workers swarmed over Earth's defense fleet. Red warning lights flashed constantly as engineers installed the Paradox's technology on ship after ship. With just 3 weeks left until the swarm scouts' awakening, every second counted. Walker stood in the Paradox's command center, watching the progress through the main viewport. The ship had become humanity's most advanced teaching tool, its AI working around the clock to train crews in operating the new weapons and defense systems. Status report, he called out to his team. 70% of the fleet has been upgraded, Thompson replied from his station. The chief engineer looked tired but satisfied. The newer ships are accepting the modifications better than expected. The self-repairing hull technology is spreading faster than we projected. Dr. Torres looked up from her console, where complex equations floated in the air. The quantum weaponry is stable across all platforms. We've even managed to improve the efficiency by 13% over the original designs. Walker nodded, allowing himself to feel a moment of pride. In just 6 weeks, humanity had advanced its technology by centuries. But would it be enough? Guide, he called out, and the AI's hologram appeared beside him. Show me the latest simulation results. The air filled with a tactical display showing their planned attack on the swarm's dormant fleet. Hundreds of upgraded Earth ships, led by the Paradox, would emerge from FTL travel directly above the sleeping alien armada. Their first strike would use the Paradox's most powerful weapon, a quantum cascade that would tear apart the fabric of space itself. Success probability has increased to 67%, Guide reported. If we can destroy 40% of their ships in the initial strike, the remaining swarm vessels will be too disorganized to mount an effective defense. And the scout ship? Walker asked. Our advance team is in position, Guide confirmed. A new display showed 5 ships hiding in the debris field near the scout's location. They're ready to prevent its awakening if anything goes wrong with our main assault. Walker's comm unit chimed. Commander, Admiral Marcus's voice came through. We need you in the war room. There's a situation. 15 minutes later, Walker stood before the Admiral and Earth's other military leaders. The atmosphere in the room was tense. We have a leak, Marcus announced without preamble. Someone talked. The public knows about the Paradox. Walker's heart sank. They'd managed to keep the operation secret for weeks, explaining away the fleet modifications as routine upgrades. But now, how bad is it? He asked. General Rivers activated a display showing news feeds from around the world. Headlines screamed about time travel, future wars, and alien invasions. Protests had already begun outside military bases. Half the population thinks we're lying, Rivers said. The other half thinks we're about to start an unjustified war. We have peace groups demanding we attempt communication with the swarm first. That would be suicide, Walker argued. The recordings from my future self prove the swarm doesn't communicate. They consume. That's all they do. We know that, Marcus said heavily. But the public doesn't have access to those records. All they see is us preparing for a massive attack on an unknown species that hasn't done anything to us yet. Then show them, a new voice said. Everyone turned to see Guide's hologram appearing in the center of the room. Show them everything. Walker understood immediately. The full recordings. Not just the tactical data, but the human cost. The refugee camps. The last cities. The children. Marcus shook his head. The panic will be nothing compared to what happens if we don't act. Walker interrupted. Guide, can you broadcast to every screen on Earth? Yes, the AI replied. The Paradox's quantum communications can override any receiving device. We can reach everyone simultaneously. Marcus stood silent for a long moment, weighing the options. Finally, he nodded. Do it. Show them why we have no choice. What followed was 2 hours of unfiltered truth. On every screen on Earth, every phone, television, and computer, people watched the future that had been. They saw the swarm's arrival, the destruction of cities, the death of billions. They saw humanity's desperate last stand, the years of fighting, the final plan to send the paradox back in time. But most importantly, they saw the hope. The upgraded fleet, the new weapons, the chance to prevent it all from happening. When the broadcast ended, the protests outside military bases had transformed into recruitment lines. Public opinion has shifted. Rivers reported, reading the incoming data, 93% support for military action. We're getting volunteers from every nation on Earth. Walker turned to Marcus. Sir, we need to accelerate the timeline. Now that our preparations are public, we have to assume the swarm might have some way of detecting our activities. We can't risk them waking early. Agreed, Marcus said. How soon can the fleet be ready? Walker consulted with guides silently through his neural link. Another piece of future tech they'd adapted. 4 days to complete the essential upgrades. We'll have to finish the rest en route. Make it 3, Marcus ordered. I want every ship ready for FTL jump by then. We hit them hard, we hit them fast, and we don't stop until the threat is eliminated. As the meeting broke up, Walker felt a strange sense of déjà vu. How many times had his future self stood in similar rooms, making similar plans? But this time was different. This time, they weren't fighting for survival. They were fighting to prevent the war entirely. Back aboard the Paradox, Walker walked the now familiar corridors to the ship's heart, a massive chamber housing the temporal drive. The device pulsed with impossible energy, parts of it existing in multiple times at once. This was humanity's greatest achievement, born from their darkest hour. 3 days, he said to Guide's hologram, which had followed him. Can we do it? We already did, Guide replied with a slight smile. In another timeline, one that will now never exist. But the question isn't whether we can do it, it's what we'll become afterward. This ship carries more than weapons, Commander. It carries a future where humanity reaches for the stars not in fear, but in hope. Walker placed his hand on the temporal drive's housing, feeling the subtle vibrations of power flowing through it. Then let's make sure we live to see that future. Above Mars, the upgraded fleet assembled in formation. Ship after ship took position, their new weapons glowing with quantum energy, their hulls rippling with self-repairing nanomaterials. At their center, the Paradox hung like a sword of Damocles, an impossible ship preparing to prevent an impossible war. The countdown to humanity's first preemptive strike continued its relentless march. 3 days until they would change the future. 3 days until they would wake the sleeping giants. 3 days until they would learn if one temporal paradox could prevent the extinction of the human race. The vast emptiness of the Carina Nebula lit up with the sudden arrival of humanity's fleet. Nearly 300 ships dropped out of FTL travel simultaneously, their upgraded hulls gleaming with quantum energy. At their center, the paradox emerged like an avenging angel, its massive form dwarfing even the largest Earth vessels. Walker stood on the paradox's bridge, his hands gripping the tactical console as he surveyed the scene before them. In the nebula's swirling gases, dark shapes floated motionless. The dormant swarm fleet, each bioship was the size of a small moon, their black surfaces absorbing both light and sensor scans. All ships report ready, Evans announced from his station. Quantum weapons charge. Shield harmonics synchronized. Scout ship status, Walker asked, his voice steady despite the tension. Strike team confirms the Scout remains dormant, Guide's hologram reported. They're in position to prevent its awakening. Walker took a deep breath. Everything they'd prepared for came down to this moment. He opened a channel to the fleet. All ships, this is Commander Walker. You know why we're here. In another timeline, these creatures destroyed our world. Today, we make sure that future never happens. Stand ready. He nodded to Guide. The AI's hologram expanded, interfacing directly with the Paradox's systems. The massive ship's quantum core began to pulse with increasing power. Primary weapon charging, Guide announced. Quantum cascade will reach critical mass in 30 seconds. On the tactical display, Walker watched as the fleet moved into attack formation. They'd drilled this hundreds of times in simulations. The Paradox would fire first, its quantum cascade creating a space-time rupture that would tear apart a portion of the swarm fleet. Then, while the survivors were still recovering, the Earth ships would strike from multiple vectors with their upgraded weapons. 20 seconds, Guide counted down. Suddenly, alarms blared across the bridge. Movement, Evans shouted. The swarm, they're waking up. Walker's blood ran cold as he watched the massive alien ships beginning to stir. Their black surfaces rippled like liquid metal as dormant systems came online. How? Walker demanded. The scout ship is still sleeping. Unknown, Guide replied, its hologram flickering with rapid calculations. Possibility. They detected our quantum energy signatures. The future tech may have triggered a defense mechanism. Time to full cascade, Walker asked urgently. 15 seconds, but the swarm ships will be combat ready in 10. Walker made his decision instantly. All ships, break formation. Initiate attack pattern Delta. Don't let them coordinate. The Earth fleet scattered just as the first swarm ship opened fire. A beam of dark energy sliced through space where their formation had been seconds before. More swarm vessels were awakening, their organic forms writhing as they prepared for battle. Cascade in 5 seconds, Guide announced. Walker watched as the nearest swarm ships began launching smaller forms, the dreaded drones that had devastated Earth in the original timeline. All ships, activate point defense grids. Don't let those drones reach you. Space lit up with weapons fire. The upgraded Earth ships proved their worth as quantum beams, and energy pulses destroyed wave after wave of drones. But more swarm ships were waking every second. Cascade ready, Guide called out. Fire, Walker ordered. The Paradox's main weapon activated, and reality itself seemed to scream. A tear in spacetime erupted in the heart of the swarm fleet, the quantum cascade ripping apart everything it touched. 3 of the massive bioships were caught in the effect, their forms twisting and fragmenting as space itself shredded them to atoms. But the remaining swarm vessels reacted with terrifying speed. They began to merge, their liquid metal forms flowing together into fewer but larger ships. They're adapting. Dr. Torres called out from her station. The quantum cascade changed their molecular structure. They're becoming resistant. Walker had feared something like this. The swarm's ability to evolve mid-battle had been documented in the future records. But they'd prepared for this too. Guide, initiate Protocol Omega. The AI's hologram smiled grimly. Protocol Omega activated. All ships, synchronize quantum frequencies to the following pattern. As the command went out, every Earth ship's weapons changed tone. The quantum energy they emitted shifted to match the Paradox's unique temporal signature. When they fired again, their beams carried fragments of future time itself. The effect was devastating. Where the combined swarm ships had been shrugging off normal quantum attacks, these temporal-infused beams cut through them like fire through ice. Their adaptive abilities couldn't cope with weapons that existed partially outside of normal time. It's working, Evans shouted. Swarm ships showing signs of molecular breakdown. But the aliens weren't finished. The remaining ships suddenly pulled back, gathering into a tight formation. Their surfaces began to pulse with dark energy. Energy spike. Torres warned. They're trying to open a dimensional rift, probably calling for reinforcements. Not today, Walker said quietly. He opened a channel to the strike team near the scout ship. Execute Plan B now. Near the sleeping scout, 5 Earth ships activated special devices provided by the Paradox. Together, they created a temporal lock, a bubble of frozen time that trapped the scout ship in perfect stasis. It would never wake, never send its signal to the rest of the swarm species. Back in the main battle, Walker watched as the remaining swarm ships struggled to open their rift. But without the scout's signal, their efforts were uncoordinated, weakened. All ships, Walker commanded, "Full attack. Everything you have. Don't let them recover." The entire Earth fleet opened fire simultaneously. Hundreds of temporal quantum beams struck the swarm formation from all directions. Unable to adapt quickly enough, unable to call for help, the massive bioships began to break apart. "Guide," Walker said, "charge the cascade one more time. Let's finish this." The Paradox's weapon powered up again, drawing on its reserves of future energy. The quantum cascade fired into the heart of the dying swarm fleet, and this time there was no escape. The fabric of space-time ripped open one final time, consuming the remaining alien ships in a maelstrom of temporal energy. When the light faded, the nebula was empty except for the Earth fleet. Debris from the swarm ships dissolved into nothingness, their impossible biology unable to survive without the collective consciousness controlling it. Walker slumped in his command chair, exhaustion finally catching up with him. Casualties. 12 ships lost, Evans reported, his voice thick with emotion. But their crews managed to eject. Rescue operations are underway. The scout ship remains in temporal stasis, Guide confirmed. It will never wake. The signal will never be sent. The future we came from, it no longer exists. Walker looked around the bridge of the impossible warship that had changed humanity's destiny. "So what happens now? To the Paradox, to you?" Guide's hologram smiled. "The timeline has changed. The future where we were created no longer exists, but we do exist, here and now. The Paradox carries centuries of human advancement, medical cures, clean energy, faster than light travel. Everything humanity achieved before the swarm arrived. We can give your people a better future than the one we came from." "A future without the swarm," Walker said, finally allowing himself to smile. "A future where those children get to see the sun." Above them, the nebula's gases swirled peacefully, showing no sign of the battle that had just prevented a war that would never happen. The Paradox hung among the Earth fleet, a warship that shouldn't exist, but did, and in existing, had changed everything. Humanity had faced its greatest test and emerged victorious. And now, with the knowledge and technology of centuries at their disposal, they could reach for the stars not in desperation, but in hope. The future was theirs to write.